Do better than that.
Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
All right, it is, wow, November. It's kind of weird to say that. November the 2nd, 2022, and we will now commence with our November committee meetings. I want to thank everyone for coming today, and we will start off with rules. I will hand it over to Chairman Hetty, and do you have a quorum for your committee, Ms. Bennett?
Yes, I do.
Wonderful.
All right. Thank everyone for being here. It's a beautiful morning today. I do want to take just a quick moment before we start here and ask everyone to, one of my communities lost 3 students Saturday night, so keep them in your thoughts and prayers. Chattooga County, 3 young men. There's another one that's in the hospital, so just keep them in your thoughts and prayers. And it's really hard anytime you lose everyone, but every one time the students and teachers are really hurting right now. And Ms. Tiffany Taylor, Dr. Taylor, I will turn it over to you.
Okay, good morning. The first item on the agenda, item number 1 for the course revisions for CTAE have been removed from consideration. So item number 2 is a request to amend State Board Rule 160-5-1-.10 student attendance. So this rule amendment is being requested for initiation, which means if approved, it will be posted for 30 days public review and comment. During the 2022 legislative session, the General Assembly passed House Bill 1292, which provides that students in any activity or program sponsored by 4-H shall be credited as present by the school in which the student is enrolled in the same manner as an educational field trip, and that such participation in an activity or program sponsored by 4-H shall not be counted as an absence, either excused or unexcused, for any day, portion of a day, or missed days from school. State Board of Education Rule 160-5-1-.10 student attendance is being amended to incorporate this new requirement for Georgia schools and systems. And again, if approved, will be posted for 30 days for public review and comment.
Any comments, questions, concerns on item number 2?
I'm glad that that's being done.
I am too.
Yes.
Competing and all that should not be held against them because it is a school
Absolutely, and I think actually probably there are those school systems who actually did count them present for field
Yes.
trips. I'm glad we have the clarity. So, with no objection, we'll plan to move this to the consent agenda tomorrow. Item number 2.
Item number 2 is an amendment of the bylaws of the State Board of Education of the state of Georgia. The purpose of this amendment is to update the bylaws of the State Board as they relate to the board's meetings. The current bylaws require the State Board to hold all meetings at the state capitol in the Department of Education. And this existing language is based on state law that was amended in 2011. House Bill 706 from the 2012 legislative session struck the requirement that the State Board meet at the state capitol in the Department of Education or at such place in the capitol as may be designated by the governor for that purpose. Additionally, state law, Official Code of Georgia annotated Section 50-14-1F, permits agencies with statewide jurisdiction to conduct meetings by teleconference. The amendment to the bylaws are being proposed by the State Board to provide the flexibility afforded by law to meet the needs of their constituents.
Any comments, questions?
I just want to comment on this because Matt Donaldson has really carried the torch on this and has worked with all y'all, and I appreciate it. One of the things I said when I began my term as chair back in January is I wanted to start taking the show on the road. And at that time, as parliamentarian, I asked Matt to start looking at and working with the department to change our bylaws so that we can do that. Knowing that we plan our meetings and we couldn't get it done for 2022, but looking forward to future years. And so we've started building our meeting schedule for next year, and it does have an on-site meeting away from Atlanta. That's the biggest thing. I'm not talking about us having our meetings completely away from Atlanta. That's not what this does. It just says we can do business, we can show the state and go around the state and show them what we're doing. And if they wanna come to the meetings, they're welcome to, But people in Macon, if they wanna show up, unless there's something on the agenda that pertains to them, they're not gonna drive up. People in Savannah are not gonna drive up. People from Rome are not gonna drive down. Unless there's something specifically on the agenda that, or if they're involved in education and they need to be here. This way we can start taking the show on the road, and in fact, we're proposing a meeting off-site in July next year down in Macon at one of our state schools. And that's sort of a natural fit for us to have these meetings at our state schools and bring the focus on them as well. So it's sort of a 2-for-1, if you will, and I'm really excited about this. And I've talked to a lot of you, and I think everyone understands this is not meant to replace coming to Atlanta by any stretch of the imagination, but it's just to take the show on the road so we can outreach to the rest of the state.
It's an opportunity.
Right, and I appreciate everyone that's been involved in this. I know we've had to redline it and keep tweaking it, make sure it's aligned with the Constitution and state law. And I think it's thoroughly been vetted. It has been rehashed several times. Again, Matt really has carried the torch on this from the board. Very proud of this, and looking forward to us doing this next year in 2023.
Anyone else?
Obviously, it was added yesterday, and this is the first time I've had a chance to look at it. I look Monday and every day, and this was just added. I don't know. I mean, I see the biggest thing is within the regular meeting, Jason. Who all vetted it and what? I know we changed. I'm just looking at that line. It says that all regular meetings will be conducted at a minimum of quarterly at the state capitol, and we changed that to regular meetings shall be held at least once every quarter. Specifically, regular meetings shall be held at the Georgia Park. However, I don't know, am I the only one on the board that hadn't had a chance to view it? So, to even know, I'm sorry, I must have been out of the loop, because.
Well, it's been out there, but this final version, I don't know that it's any different from what, because you've got the red line and the non-red line. This what we're passing today, it was added yesterday, but it has been out there. This is not, there are not substantial changes from what we saw and discussed.
So the bylaws, I think, were originally brought to you all in June for review, and I think then you all had a timeline to provide input. And then based on, but there were many changes from June. Again, I think Stacy can give the specific details, but I think there were sort of 3 changes. One, she just cleaned up the language that you just referred to, Helen. The second was cleaning up the language related to your ability to do your teleconference meetings, just to make sure you guys are in line with Open Meetings Act there. And then the third was to change your bylaws to allow you to meet off-site.
Yes, Ms. Lisa?
Due to the late posting of this, could we pull that for a separate vote so that we'll have an opportunity to read through it and to be able to just digest everything that's in there?
If that's what you wish, yes, we can pull it for a separate vote. Okay, any other comments, questions?
And the only reason that I wanted to make sure it gets passed, and if it doesn't pass, that's fine. If we need more time to review, but because the anticipation is then in December, having passed this, then we'll bring the meetings and approve that list. We could still do it in December if we need to. It's just do it first, then do the meetings right after that. So because that meeting does presuppose that there'll be one in Macon.
Okay. Mr. Mason?
Just to comment, we did have discussion in committee in June.
Yes.
And that's just to let you know that we did hash it out, and then had, conversations along the way. So I just wanted you to know that it did have a home in committee. I know you're comfortable when those things happen. I just wanted you to know that,
Well, I'm not uncomfortable. I just have not had a chance to look at it since June till now.
We'll catch you up.
And just doing a side by side, I was just seeing the biggest change was under regular meeting, and I hadn't even had a chance. But if I'm the only one,
No, I like
No,
it.
it's no.
No, it's fine.
And then-
Give us time to read
Yeah, I
through it.
think
I don't
Lisa's
want-
suggestion is a good one.
Yes.
Let me put it this way: if there's not unanimity in this, that's a big word, then I don't want it done. So I want to make sure everybody has ample time to look at it. And my feelings aren't hurt. I get where you're coming from, Ellen.
Yeah.
I totally do.
I don't
So
think anyone has a
Yeah.
problem. Stacy, were you gonna say something?
Yes, I did want to mention one thing. If you look at Article 9 in your bylaws, which has not been amended, 9.1 says that prior to any amendments being adopted by the state board, it has to be submitted in writing at the previous regular meeting of the board. So, you guys could always consider this to be the meeting where it's been presented and then actually just adopt it at your next meeting.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, we've pulled this for a separate vote,
Right.
so if that's what we wanna do, we'll make sure that the motion itself clears that up.
Reflects.
Can we do that, Stacy? Just make sure that the motion that's made to approve that as an action item for the separate vote contains that
Yes.
language, so that then we'll have the 30 days and then December, boom,
Yes.
perfect. If that's what we decide.
Okay. All right, any other comments, questions? And the last item,
Item number 4 is a request to post Georgia's K-12 English Language Arts Standards for public review and comment. This item is being requested to post for 30 days public review and comment. In August 2019, Governor Brian Kemp and State School Superintendent Richard Woods announced the review and revision of Georgia's K-12 standards and outlined their commitment to the best set of academic standards for Georgia students that will lay a strong foundation of the fundamentals, ensure age and developmentally appropriate concepts and content, provide instructional supports to set up our teachers for success, and prepare students for life. Georgians have been engaged throughout the standards review and revision process through public surveys, in which 14,000 Georgians participated, and through a charge and recommendation by the Citizens Review Committee, comprised of students, parents, business, and community leaders, and Georgia citizens. More than 300 ELA educators with varying levels of experience from every sector of our state worked in grade level teams and engaged in deep discussions, analyzed stakeholder feedback, and provided draft recommendations. Their recommended standard revisions were shared with the Academic Review Committee, which included our post-secondary partners, age and development experts, and business leaders, and then went back to the Citizens Review Committee for final input and feedback. The draft standards feature built-in learning progressions across grade spans and within grade level concepts, allowing teachers to remediate or accelerate learning as needed. If approved, the K-12 English Language Arts Standards will be posted for public review and comment. Following public comment, the standards will be recommended for adoption, followed by a year of teacher training and professional learning prior to implementation in school year 2024-2025.
comments, questions, or concerns on this one?
I have some comments, but
Okay.
they're positive. Are we having the ELA team coming? Are they gonna be here?
I asked the people that were involved if they could make it to be, and I don't know if we've got people on the line or if we've had some of the review team that's been able to make it.
Yeah.
Today or tomorrow?
Today or tomorrow? Are they gonna be
I think
here?
it said one or the other, if possible, so,
Tomorrow may be better.
because we're gonna pull this for a separate vote anyway, obviously.
Right.
So, but do we know if we've got anybody from the review team, some of the leadership?
Well,
Now, it does not have to be pulled for a separate vote, just a post.
Right.
We wanna have discussion.
Technically,
Well,
but
yeah, I
if the,
think
dis-
so. I
if,
think so.
if they're only gonna come tomorrow, then we'll
Okay.
have to, that's what I'm trying to find out if we've got.
I mean, we had several people
Hey,
over here.
hey, Matt.
So, and I know Ms. Rice, I think, was on the
academic review.
review.
I mean, we have a presentation ready today. We can do it in the committee or we can do it tomorrow, whatever works.
I think
for-
tomorrow's fine.
Okay, then we'll be ready for that in the morning, tomorrow morning.
Okay.
Good to go.
And I wanted to thank Chairman, Jason.
Downey.
It's okay. You just call me Jason, it's okay. We have to be formal.
For asking me to serve on the Academic Review Committee. And I will say that all of the ELA team that was there, they were very engaged. They were, you could tell that they had worked very hard on those standards. Brianna, the program manager, to Haley Emberson, who did middle school, to Adina, and I hope I'm saying these words correctly, Oglesby, who did elementary, and who, Asa, I think is the way, Asa, Jensini from high school, and I know Sarah Baloo Welch was also a part, along with April Aldridge, who is an instructional ed in rural Georgia, but I think she's coming in and doing more with ELA. Is April out here? I see you right there, I'm sorry. my mind was focused here. But, it was going through the standards and having an opportunity to see the work. I had called Jason a meeting and I said, hey, I just think this is so good that we need for our state board to see it. And we need a chance for people to really understand the work that went in it. I appreciate, and I did not have a chance to look because it got put on last night at late. And of course, everybody knows the saga of my tablet. It still won't let me in again,
User
Keith.
error.
No, it's not a user error. Where is Keith Osborne to defend me out there? I came early to get it fixed this morning. It did, but now it's not doing. But anyway, you can tell very much that a lot of work went in this. And as I said, I thought it would be a great chance for the people on this board to hear it and see it. This has been over a year and a half of doing something. I'm just sorry that we're having to rush right now to to post them, because the colleagues that are out in the districts that were not on the team and have not had a chance to see them, and it's a holiday, we've got Thanksgiving coming up, so I'm sorry that it's gonna be rushed to do that, but I'm just thanking Matt for bringing them to us, and I appreciate so much the opportunity to do that. Like I said, this is probably one of the biggest things we'll have, these standards come up. Richard, I brought to you the old standards when you first came in, just to see how they have moved from where they are now, from the old standards of excellence to where we were in the beginning. And you can look, I had asked to see a crosswalk, and I think that we can see that, so that would be very helpful in the districts. But that's what I wanted to say. I do think probably we need to have some discussion and call for a separate vote after he's gonna bring the team here, which would be great. So, thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, that concludes the rules committee.
All right, so just to recap, we have, item 1 was pulled from consideration. We have 2 on the consent agenda, but 3 and 4, which deal with the amendment to the bylaws and the ELA standards, will be pulled for separate discussion and potentially a vote.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Ms. Petty. We will have to take about a 10-minute break. We will start promptly at 11 with District Flexibility and Charter Schools Committee. Immediately after that, we will do Audit Committee at 11:15, and then we'll go into executive session. So we'll do a quick, let's be back right at 11 promptly, and we will get started. Thank you.
I know it. That's so funny. Okay. Yeah.
session for district flexibility. It's my understanding there are some technical difficulties. If you're following along, I believe the Assembly website is down for our agenda. It looks like it's back up. We're good. We're rocking and rolling now. Okay, good. All right. Well, never mind. Disregard what I just said. And I will hand the meeting over to Mr. Scott Sweeney. This is your committee. Do you have a quorum, sir?
Yes, we do,
All right.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to call the committee meeting for the District Flexibility and Charter School Committee to order. And we have only one agenda item, and we'll turn to Ms. Taylor.
All right, our item is a request to approve the commissioner reappointment for the State Charter Schools Commission. So the commissioners of the State Charter Schools Commission are appointed by the State Board of Education in accordance with the official Code of Georgia Annotated, Section 20-2-2082B, from nominations received from the Governor, Lieutenant Governor, and Speaker of the House of Representatives. In accordance with this law, Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan submitted his nomination for the reappointment of Mr. Tony Loudon for another term to the State Charter Schools Commission. If reappointed, Mr. Loudon's term would last until January 20th, 2026.
Does anybody have any questions or comments for Ms. Taylor?
I just have a comment. So I received this letter, I don't know, it was a few weeks ago from Lieutenant Governor's office requesting that Tony be reappointed. I've known Tony for a number of years. He's very passionate about charter schools. He is a necessary voice on that, with that group, and will continue to serve the state of Georgia well. And I was excited to see that Lieutenant Governor had asked for his reappointment. So that's my 2 cents. I know you all have worked with Tony. He's a good guy.
Yeah,
Good guy. Proud to have him.
Good one to have on that board.
absolutely.
Any other questions or comments? All right, without objection, can we move this to the consent agenda? All right, be on the consent agenda for tomorrow, Mr. Chair. That concludes the committee report and meeting.
You promised a short meeting, and it is. The bad news is that technically we cannot begin audit until 11:15. So as much as I tried to schedule this, never thought it would be less than 15 minutes, but heck, I was told. So we're not gonna do a big old break and everybody, I mean, if you wanna go, you can, but we will start audit promptly at 11:15, so we got 12 minutes. I know we have a new list, I think,
Yes,
an
we
updated
do.
list that we can discuss. So
Yeah, we've got,
we will reconvene at 11:15 and discuss
we
audit.
do have business and audit today.
Fair enough. All right, sorry, everyone.
Are you,
No way around that.
is it a connection problem in the building?
5-minute meetings. All right. It is 11:17 and we will reconvene our committee meetings, and I will ask Mr. Mike Royal, who is the chair of the audit committee, if he has a quorum and can do business.
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum.
And also, I believe that, again, Assembly, we've been having some issues with it this morning, so all the board members have received a printout, legal paper of the moderate and high-risk systems and most recent corrective action plans. And Mike, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the members of the board. Audit committee this month, we do, there's some information on Assembly that obviously you can't get to, but members have been given a copy of the information that is on Assembly. And some of you, I'm not sure who all the letter from Greg Griffin, our state auditor, went to on the board. I think
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah.
could you make sure we're unmuted?
Yeah,
Frank just sent a message, just to make sure.
Okay.
Thanks, Frank.
We're all good now. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for joining us remote, Frank. Sorry you can't be here with us today. But all of you should have received the letter from Department of Audits and Accounts from Greg Griffin, our state auditor, with the update for the high-risk and moderate-risk schools as it relates to Senate Bill 68 report. Did everyone get that? Does everyone have a copy of that? Okay. I have gone over this list and some of the other information with Rusk and Amy Rowell from our audits department. I appreciate y'all's time and going over this list and our obligations, because one of the things I asked Amy and Rusk was, and I feel like my role as chair of this board, or chair of this committee, is to make sure our board is doing what it's legally responsible to do under SB 68, because SB 68 does have shalls in there, state board shall, and some of them are informing the local superintendent of the irregularities or budget deficits, putting the high and moderate risk districts on notice, and going through that. I'll circle back around to that, but what I want to do first is highlight the districts that are on high risk, and also touch on some of the positives that have happened, some of the districts that are in have been making positive strides and are either come off of the high risk or close to coming off of high risk and are working diligently with our department staff to meet their obligations. And then there's some that are new and maybe some that aren't on there. So going back to the letter, we've got a new high-risk district that was just put on, was Floyd County. And we've got even some more updates Amy, since this letter of October 17th. I mean, Russ, and obviously feel free to jump in any time. The list that I have is the list on Assembly, the one that they got broken out between high and moderate, the one that you just passed out?
Yes, I believe each side, one side's moderate, one side's high.
We get that
In
list.
the email.
It's on there. It's what you just received. One side is the moderate risk schools, and
Oh,
one side's
okay.
the high risk schools. Okay. Russ or Amy, do you want to jump in even right quick to that of the changes and where we're at? Maybe some of the counties that are our district, our LEAs, that are maybe about to come off, or give us a little update, a rundown of the high risk.
Yeah, Amy, do you have the list? I do know, I think, is it Randolph, or I don't have the list.
Hey. Yes, we've had 4 come off the list since we started this process. And I'm hearing feedback. I'm sorry.
You're good on our.
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Berrien, Randolph, Clay, and Worth have all come off the list, and how they come off the list is by receiving a new audit, or where the findings that had caused them to be designated as moderate or high risk have been resolved in the next audit. So some of ours are still on the list where they may have had a one finding or something of that nature, and they stay on the list until they have another audit. Whether it's the Department of Audits doing the audit or a private CPA firm, and then the Department of Audits reviews that audit report. So just because you kind of see some of them on the list for a while, it's really, in some cases, not all, but in some cases, it may be the result of just timing on waiting on that next audit, because the law does require the Department of Audits to analyze and designate the school systems as high or moderate risk. So we wait on that designation.
Okay, so what were those for again, Amy? So we can mark them off of our.
Yes, Berrien County, and Berrien's not on your list because once we have reported them on your official report as being resolved, we did remove them. So Berrien County has been removed. Randolph and Clay County are reported on this month's report as being off the designated list as of September 3rd. And Worth County, we received their information on October 6th. So we've had 4 that have had a subsequent audit that is showing resolved findings, therefore resolving the designated risk associated with those findings.
So then that leaves Brooks, City of Beaufort for 19 and 20, City of Dublin, City of Thomasville, Dooley, Hancock, Harris, Jeff Davis, Jones, and Talbot for 19 and 20 on the high risk, and Floyd, correct?
Yes, correct.
So it's my understanding that, I mean, again, these systems that are still on the list may not have to still be there, but they can opt to pay the money to bring in somebody to do a private audit as long as it's approved. And some of these systems probably don't have that capability or don't want to go through that process, right? Is that what I'm hearing? Either that or they get away from the state, right?
It doesn't have to do with a private CPA firm. If a school system uses a private CPA firm, the Department of Audits is still charged in the law for reviewing that audit. Now, what you may be referring to is a timing issue of just waiting on the next audit resolution. And so that's regardless of whether or not it's a CPA audit or Department of Audits. We're going to wait until the next audit is completed for that review. So regardless of whether or not a district uses the Department of Audits or a CPA firm to perform their audit, in the law associated with Senate Bill 68, the Department of Audits is required to review all of the audit reports and designate a risk association. So we have a few on the list that are CPA audits, Floyd County being one of them, and then also Clayton County, which is a moderate risk district. And let's see, Troup County is a CPA audit as well, and there's a few others. So using a CPA firm would not alleviate the risk associated with these districts.
Well, and the point I wanted to make is it's not as if these systems submitted a corrective action plan and they're not doing anything. I mean, they may have corrected or are in the process of correcting what needed to be corrected. The audit just hadn't come up to get them off the list yet.
Correct. You are correct.
And that's where I was going next.
Sorry.
But no,
I mean, so you thought.
No, that's perfect, because that's a perfect segue, because that's what I wanted to do next, Amy, is just really jump through, like we did for the sake of our committee the other day, and looking at, for instance, I'm gonna jump to City of Beaufort. City of Beaufort has a brand new finance person who is in there, and new superintendent, and they are taking corrective action to try to get this done, correct?
Yes, sir. And the 19 and 20 audits were issued by a CPA firm within 2 months of each other. So we have requested an update for their corrective action plan for FY 2020. But we have considered, Department of Audits has requested that we also consider some of the compliance requirements, such as superintendent financial management training, to go ahead and suffice for this for the fiscal year 20 audit, in addition to the 19. And it really has to do with the timing issue, because by the time we were aware of the findings in the 19 audit, and due to the timing of the publications, there really wasn't time to remedy the findings before the FY20 audit was published. So we're waiting on the 21 and 22 audit. And at that point in time, we'll be able to assess if there's any new findings that are related to another condition or if the prior findings haven't been resolved. But since those audit reports have been published, there is new leadership at that school district, and we're in good communication with that finance team with questions and so forth with financial review. So we do feel like corrective action is being implemented there. We will just have to wait on the next audit to see what the results of the actual audit is.
Okay. All right, so I'm gonna start back at, I was just gonna use that as an example because this is one we specifically talk about. Brooks County is on the high risk, and it's for overall internal control procedures in the central office, but the corrective action plan does adequately address the issues, and their superintendent has attended the financial management training. Is there any updates or anything on Brooks County that you'd like, anything other that you'd like to share?
No, I don't have an update on where they are with their 21 audit. I haven't asked that. I know Department of Audits is on the call, so I'm not sure if they have an estimated date of that release. And that is a new finance officer as well. That finance officer has been there for probably about a year. And we do work closely with the new finance officers with questions and just overall compliance issues. So I do not have an update on that one, but I'll be happy to investigate.
Does anyone from the Department of Audits, and again, thank you for joining. I can only see a small slice of who's on the call with us from our screen. Our assembly is down. But does anybody from the Department of Audit, if you want to chime in on any of these, please do. You're our partner in this, and we appreciate your partnership. And
yeah. Yes, this is Kenneth Knight, Director of Financial Audits at Department of Audits. And the Brooks County audit is in the final stages of review. It should be released. We're hoping to get it out next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Knight. We've gone over Beaufort City. I think we've got their attention now. I've actually had some of their even board reach out to me on what needs to be done to remedy this and get them off this list. And I think they are going to be headed in the correct direction on that. We've got City of Thomasville for the fiscal year 20 is the next one. Amy or Ms. Rowell, Mr. Knight, any comments on City of Thomasville?
I do not have an update on the 21 audit released yet. That is also a new finance director at that district, and we have worked closely with that finance director on their corrective action plan as far as it being detailed enough. And we feel like that they've added additional information to their corrective action plan that should it be implemented, it should provide the results of a resolution. However, again, there are some, just as you have a new finance officer, some of those issues do take time to resolve.
Well, what worries me about that one is it's listed as some of the deficiencies being activity accounts. And being here for as long as I have, those accounts can be where surprises come from. So, I've seen that over the years. So, guess we'll do more on City of Thomasville. And if any board members have any questions, please jump in if any of these are in your district or you just have to ask. Okay. And again, congratulations to Clay County for coming off. Good work. Dooley County is on. And Amy, any update on Dooley?
No, not as far as the 21 audit. I know that they had some issues come up in fiscal year 2022. So I do anticipate that they will stay on the risk designation. I do know that that superintendent is very involved with their corrective action in getting off the list. So we have been engaged in conversations with the superintendent as well as the finance office there. But they do still have some corrective actions to implement.
Is Dooley a private audit or a state audit?
It's a state audit.
Mr. Knight, do you have any thoughts on Dooley? Because their list of explanation was pretty long. as far as federal findings, equipment, nutrition, procedures, Title I.
Dooley is still in review stages. It has not hit my desk yet, so I really don't have a lot of information on it, but I can check it.
Fair enough. I appreciate you allowing me to put you on the spot here. You got Hancock.
We do have an update on Hancock. We are still working with Hancock on their corrective action for their capital assets finding. And it has not yet been published, so it's still in draft.
Okay.
But we are still in communication with them regarding their internal controls around reporting their capital assets.
Okay. And two, folks, while we're going through this, is just to shine light on the issues they're having, to be public and transparent about where we're at, and that was really the focus of SB 68. Is really, when you read through the bill and the law and what our requirements are as a state board, it's about transparency. And that's why we're going through this right now. You can see the only other one, I mean, we've got Harris, Jeff Davis, Jones, and Talbot are the remainders that are on the high risk. I'll just use those in a bucket. Amy or Mr. Knight, if you just have anything to highlight on those three, we don't have to continue to go through line by line, but with the ones we've got in Floyd, because it's new, is there anything you think would be relevant for the board or for this committee to hear regarding those additional districts or where they're at, or things that we may need to be made aware of?
From the financial review side, I anticipate Harris and Jeff Davis will be removed. I anticipate Jones County will be removed. Talbot County, I do anticipate that they will still continue to be on the list as they train their new finance officer with some of the issues there. You know, when your finances, when you get behind on bank reconciliations and closing out your monthly financial reports, it takes time to reconcile that information. So I do think that Talbot will continue to be on the risk designation. I think Floyd will most likely come off. Floyd had 4 findings in previous years, and then the first audit that was released after Senate Bill 68 came into effect, they had they were down to 1 finding. So while they hit our risk designation as high because it had been a repeat finding for 4 years, they had shown improvement over past years in other findings being resolved. So I anticipate that they will come off as well. So we are continuing to work weekly with Talbot, and so we do have some concerns there, continued concerns over their internal control processes.
All right, so that's really good news, though, that I believe Harris, Jeff Davis, and Jones will be coming off shortly. That's very positive. And Floyd is down to 1, so it's a repeat. And then sounds like Talbot still has work to do.
Yes, sir, in our opinion, yes.
Okay. I value your opinion, Amy. We worked together, 12 years now on this, and I appreciate all your work, and I do value and trust your opinion on these. Mr. Knight, on as far as the state audit department is, do you have any further thoughts or any questions or anything you'd like to add to where we're at on any of these high-risk districts?
No, they're all in the final review stages, but yeah, like Amy said, Talbot is going to continue. There's still problems. Hancock, we still have the capital asset finding on it. It is on my desk, so I do know that it will continue.
Okay. When do you anticipate maybe the review of these others being done?
They will definitely be completed by the end of the year.
Okay.
Hopefully sooner than that, but
Sure. No, and part of my questioning is on that, we don't want to have an audit committee meeting just for the sake of audit committee meetings. So I wanted to see what would be relevant. So really probably January would be a good time to revisit some of these because your reviews will be done and we'll have additional
Right.
information to consider.
Yes.
Okay, all right. We won't go over all the moderate risks, but are there anything in particular jump out to you or anything you think would be good for this committee to hear or have Mr. Knight or Amy on any of the moderate districts? I see, I know DeKalb was on high. It dropped to moderate really quickly on there because obviously that's a large district. But you have anything for the board or anything we probably need to be made aware of or be watching on any of the moderate risk districts?
Most of the moderate risk districts, I believe, are situations where they had a finding for just 1 year or less. Or excuse me, only 1 year, because that for the moderate designation, it's if a finding has only been for 1 or 2 years. So most of them are not a concern. We are following up with Clayton County and DeKalb County, and we are currently working with Tri-City with their finance officer who has been there a couple of years but is still fairly new. We've been working with her recently on cleaning up some prior balances and so forth. So, and their finding was related to a unique situation that should not be repeated. So I think that Trine will come off. So again, other than working with DeKalb and Clayton on some additional issues, most of these I do predict will come off at the list.
Okay. Mr. Knight, any thoughts? In addition?
I do know we're getting started on DeKalb here soon. For the FY22 audit, we've started on a few, but I don't have any additional other than what Amy's covered.
All right, good deal. And then the last thing I want to cover in audit today is we, i.e. the State Board of Education under Senate Bill 68, Amy and Rusk and I talked about this in our last meeting, is there are certain reporting rules and certain notices that we, the state board, is supposed to give to the districts. And obviously this creates issues because we, the state board, we don't even have an executive director, but we rely on the department to do a lot of this. And they have been, like for instance, either informing the superintendent or the departments that they are put on high risk or what they're supposed to do under the law. But Amy, would you share, or Rusk, either one with you, what is being done? And this is where we may need to talk, Mr. Chairman, because I ask, it says the state board shall. Well, the department is doing it, but it doesn't say, I don't think, on behalf of the state board or in accordance with state law. In code section, this is your notice. So are they technically being put on notice by the state board? Or is being done by the department, right, but the law says the state board shall. So really how best to handle that, because Amy, can you maybe even touch on maybe what we touched on Monday is how the reporting goes in that, or Rusk, and then we can kind of walk through what we may need to change if we do even need to change anything on our reporting under Senate Bill 68.
Yeah, I think this is what we talked about a year ago. I'll let Amy go through the specifics of what her team does, but I shared, and I can share with the rest of the audit committee, our PowerPoint presentation from last year. There are some things that, such as the clearance letters and the notifications that are, the law states that the board would issue. However, the department has already had processes and procedures in place to do these tasks. So we're doing them and advising the audit committee as we do with these meetings. So I think when we had this meeting a year ago, we came to the conclusion that this was working. But we are open to modify as needed. And
to his point, I think where we left that was because of the process that had been in place that had been working, that we designated and allowed for the department on our behalf to send those letters. Now, you know, if just to tie it up nice with a bow, if we need to put language in there and on behalf of the State Board of Education moving forward, we can. I don't know that we need to do that. I think because we designated them to continue that procedure, they are by our designee and send those letters out on behalf of the department and inherently then the State Board. But I'm curious to see if anybody else or if Stacy thinks we need to have specific language saying, and all you'd have to do is put "and on behalf of the State Board,"
Yes.
if we even need to do that. I don't know that we do, but there may be different.
Well, that's why I just wanted to bring it up for discussion for two reasons. One, to bring it up that the reporting is being done.
Us, right.
Yes, the reporting that is under 20-2-67, the requirements are being done, but it's not, is it or is it, we have designated it to the department, and it's being done, but if it were to be challenged, or just to have that conversation, and Mr. Chair, it's probably, as you just mentioned, maybe a good idea to have Stacy or somebody look at that and just, does the letter template need to be updated with that information in there, just to make sure that if across the street it comes up, well, no, the State Board's not, well, yes, we are, but, so. So I guess the action then for this committee is to get with the Super Drake on that, to just make sure that the reporting processes the I's are being dotted and the T's are being crossed as to our responsibilities under SB 68. With that, do any other members have any questions of our department staff or audit staff? It looks like our next meeting would probably be in January, when we can get the updates from Mr. Knight's team and Amy's team on where we're at with these districts. It sounds like, and I want to say, majority of this is good news. I appreciate those districts that have stepped up and doing what's required to meet the requirements of the law, and a lot have. And we've got some pretty good news. We've got a few asterisks in there that we need to continue to work on, but that's where we're at.
Mr. Long, I have a question, please. As board members, do we need to assist in any way? 'Cause I have two on this list that are moderate, and do we need to assist in any way by visiting them or anything that we can do? This is my first time really working with the audit committee, so just want to know if there's anything we can do as board members to help our community and our constituents.
I'm trying to. The answer is possibly on here, and that's why I wanted to go through one, as I said, to meet the transparency requirements under 60, and we need to be transparent, whether 68's there or not, we need to be transparent. But also, when we started this committee and this process on 68, the goal was not to beat up districts and there's different challenges. Amy mentioned there's one that had a unique situation, there's others that had challenges. We've got new superintendents, we've got new finance directors. And most are trying to do the right thing. And those that are trying to do the right thing and I know this is Superintendent Wood's philosophy, the staff's going to try to help them. Every now and then we get somebody that doesn't really want to, or puts their head in the sand, or doesn't know, and they need some additional help. And it sounds like there's only one or two on here right now that are in that category of needing some additional help that to push on. So what I'm hearing right now is probably not, or it might not even be bad if you've got relationships to reach out and ask and say, are you getting the help you need? Is there anything I can do to assist? Because sometimes I tell people all the time in my business, if I don't know there's a problem, I can't correct it. And so I appreciate when customers come to me and saying, if Superintendent Woods doesn't know there's a problem, he can't get his staff on it to help correct it. So if you are a member and you have a district on here, and we've talked about a lot of them, probably wouldn't hurt to reach out and just say, hey, I'm from the government, can I help? But really mean it. So,
From the government,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
a follow-up to that. We are governance.
Yes.
And I just want to speak to the wise decision to create the committee to focus on this. And same thing with flexibility. This is ongoing work.
That's right.
Our agenda gives us the right to create these committees, and you're using it not as an I gotcha, but as this is continued work. This is our process. This is how we create the opportunity to improve with support. And so I just want to commend this board's and department's leadership for moving in this direction, and the great work of the staff in maintaining, the community ongoing. Again, they're doing it 24/7, ongoing communications on this. So I just want to thank you for leading this committee and creating this committee as well.
Well,
It was actually Mr. Sweeney that brought the committee back, and I appreciate Mr. Sweeney's leadership on that.
Educationally speaking and leadership speaking, these are two amazing counties that I have. That's why I said if there's something I can do, touch base with them for more resources or whatever it might be to help them go ahead and get off the list, because again, my two that are in my district are absolutely phenomenal in their other qualities. So I just want to make sure there's something we can do to help them out. So.
Yes, Mr. Sweeney.
I have a question, and this is related to some news yesterday in DeKalb relative to funding with some of the charter schools, and the decision that was rendered. I think it was like $10 million funds that had been withheld, and I know that there's potentially an appeal process, but that $10 million allocation, is that something that the district has held in reserves that would be able to be paid out to these districts, or how does that gonna work?
I honestly, yesterday was a incredibly crazy day for me, and I didn't even see that yesterday. I have not read that or seen it. Is that on the 3% ruling, or what?
No, there were multiple charter schools that were plaintiffs.
Judge rules in favor, is that the one? This one?
Properly allocated,
Something
funding.
to take a look at.
I mean, that's something we should take a look at, because I know I'm familiar with the lawsuit. I didn't read the ruling. I hadn't seen the ruling yet, but there's other issues that we'll get into in charter that we've been trying to help resolve. Charter committee, and I've even stepped in to try to help a district and an LEA and a charter school try to resolve some of those funding issues, different things as well. So there's a lot more of that going out there than just a cab. When I say going on, I don't mean that in a intentional sense that they're trying to do things wrong, but there's a lot of gray area in some of these laws and what they can do and what they can't do. And as rulings come down with this, it'll codify and take away some of that gray. So that's something I'm not prepared to talk about the DeKalb thing today. I don't know if anybody else is or wants to discuss it, but
I read the ruling, I haven't got the article, but and to your point, both of your points, there are in the works, I'm trying to think the best way to word this, changes that are being proposed to update that particular issue as it relates to financing and local authorizers and LEAs properly funding by law the charters. And so there are some changes, they have to come from across the street, but there are some discussions about that I've been involved tangentially. I think there'll be some more in-depth conversations that I'll be involved in. Would love to get your all's input, and as those conversations come up, I'll certainly bring it back to the board. But that is on some prominent decision makers' radar, and we will see what comes of that, and if it makes it to some sort of legislation by January.
in a quick read of the summary judgment that was issued, this got some potential significant impacts on how charter schools are being funded by their LEAs.
It's something to keep an eye on.
Which is why that conversation now is gonna begin.
Yes.
I think everyone was waiting to see if that was gonna come out before, and so now there's, the troops are being rallied, let's put it that
Yeah.
way, so I'll leave it at that.
There was a summary judgment on 5 of 6 points.
Right.
So
And
that's
Judge
pretty.
Baxter was pretty explicit.
Yes, there wasn't a lot of gray in his the first read, so. Anything else for this committee? Sir, with that, we're adjourned. Thank you,
Okay.
Mr. Knight. Thank you, Amy. All right, all the other members.
Mr. Royal, and it's my understanding there are no business items that will go to the consent agenda, is that correct? Motion to go to executive session for purposes of discussing legal matters, personal matters, and any other matters allowable under Georgia law. Do I have a motion? Thank you, Mike Long. Matt Donaldson's not here, so you got to actually make the motion to get a second by Martha Soller. All right. You should see him under executive session. Listen, we've been needing to have this, and it's exciting to me that sounds like about 30 a motion to come out of executive session at this time?
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion by Mr. Jarnett, second by Ms. Petty. Any discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And just to clarify, there was no business conducted in executive session. We will now move on to the Budget Committee meeting, and I believe Mr. Donaldson, I don't know if he's on
No, he's
able to
not.
attend on the line. So
not
Mr.
available to be
Johnson
here, so
will
I'll-
be handling our agenda. So Mr. Johnson, I will turn to you. Do you have a quorum for your Budget Committee?
Indeed we do, Mr. Chairman,
All right.
thank you. Call to order the State Board of Education Budget Committee for November. And we have not a heavy agenda, but we've got some things that do require us to approve. So first item is the CTAE grant amendment for fiscal year 23, construction-related equipment grants for career and technical education, agricultural education.
Yeah, this is to adjust grant allocations for LEA projects which were delayed or unable to be completed due to COVID-19 supply chain and timing disruptions. This amendment is a reduction of $875,500, which brings our total grant amount to $6,196,460.
Okay. It's recommended that the State Board of Education authorize the state school superintendent to amend the grant with the attached list of the local education agencies by the amount of $875,500, cost not to exceed $6,196,460 in other funds for the purpose of CTAE or construction-related equipment grants for middle, and high school programs. Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, is it agreeable to move this to the consent agenda? Hearing no objection, it is moved to consent agenda. Okay, number 2, federal programs, contract renewal, assistive technology, and accessible education materials.
Yeah, this is our, the purpose of this contract is to facilitate direct supports to students with disabilities by providing access to assistive technology and accessible educational materials, supports, and services. This contract is not to exceed $1,090,083.
Okay. Recommendation is to recommend that the State Board of Education authorize the state school superintendent to renew a contract Tools for Life at a cost of not to exceed $1,090,083 in federal funds for assistive technology and accessible educational materials for students with disabilities. Is there any questions or comments? If there are no objections, we'll move this item to the consent agenda. Very good. Third item, rural education and innovation grant for school safety.
Yeah, the purpose of this grant is to provide 66 identified rural school districts with up to $50,000 to improve school safety practices and infrastructure. This total grant is not to exceed $3,191,225.
I'd like to hear someone, I see someone speak about that, because that's a,
Right, this grant is for up to $50,000 for every rural school district, so we have 115 in the state. And so it's to give them the opportunity to improve school safety in their district.
and what are some of the ideas that have come out for opportunity to improve?
It could be surveillance, it could be cameras, it could be access control, so getting into the buildings, different things like that.
Okay,
Fencing.
facility kind of layout.
Yeah, basically facilities, infrastructure.
Someone mentioned to me about a door, that a door went one way and the other way so it would not be locked. Have you heard? As a safety pattern. I thought that was, instead of it locking down totally, it could lock down, but if you needed to get out,
Like,
one,
yeah, for, like if there were an emergency,
Yes.
just for safety so that the kids could get out.
they could control it, yeah.
Yeah, all doors have to have access, fire code. So you have to at least be able to get out.
Well, I know that, but it was a trick. I mean, not a trick, but if you needed a lockdown, it would lock down. But
About
if
the
you-
red thing that we saw.
Yeah. But there was a panel that they could push to access an opening of a door if they needed to get out immediately. We just saw it, a year ago, but I imagine that's a big thing? A red door or something like that? I just wondered what kind of innovation people were thinking now and seeing. Thank you. 50,000.
While you're up, is there any more of monies that are gonna be available for this, like for reconstruct entrances and stuff? Chris Irwin and I talked about this, about the possibility of a lot of reconstructs on your front entrances, and, maybe even a SWAT door. Especially, is there any more money that's out there for this? Is there any, especially in the CARES money or anything? I know that's a weird way to try to reach for the CARES money, but it's just such a hot topic, and especially now with all that's going on. But it just about, and not just that group, because we talked to several other architects and builders. I talked to them at several different chosen facilities meeting was just last week down in Savannah. So I talked to them again down there about, again, possible reconstructs of front entrances or main entrances. Is there any more money that's coming down from the feds on school safety or anything that we know of?
I don't know about that. I know there's probably some more state money, but I also know we're gonna open up a second round for the rural districts. So for districts that did not apply, but you know, any sort of safety feature like that would have been eligible for our money for sure.
Well, you know, with building costs, especially nowadays, 50,000 won't do the one door. You know, wouldn't even tear down. But that just, it's great that we have it, don't get me wrong, because that's a lot of cameras and a lot of stuff that can be put in, but it just, we need, of course, I know the governor's on it, and, ma'am?
How much is something like that?
Oh, you're talking $20 million probably. Yeah, you're talking, I mean, to do it, I mean, that's just in one district, I'm talking, yeah, it'd be a total reconstruct of a three-way door system. There's a lot of different plans out there, but it's just your main door. And then I brought up in Brasstown at that meeting when we were talking about school safety with some of those folks about a SWAT door. Literally have a door in every school where they only have access to that door to get in.
What's the red door?
But it's just what now?
That was that red door concept.
That's a red phone booth. Place. Just kidding. Anyway, I didn't know if you or if Matt or anybody with the federal monies or Alan, whoever's out there, there's gonna be like, you're talking about millions of dollars now, I understand, but we're also talking about safety for our kids, so that's all. I appreciate
So
it.
one of the things, like with our access control, law enforcement would have, you know, access to be able to get in the front of the school. So it just depends on the school system, like how they have that set up for local law enforcement.
But long time ago, when segregation just started and whatnot, I'm that old, back in the day. I was in Bruns Avenue, which was in Charlotte, North Carolina, and they actually came in and chained the door from the inside real quick, so it totally cut off everybody. We were on the news, I mean, it was part of the Black Panther group came in, but they actually chained the door from the inside, which shut down everybody. They could not get in at all. So that's why I said, I wonder if there's again, we're fishing right now, but there's also ways to, it's almost like a chess match. You got to outsmart the ones that are trying to get in. So I would love to know that our government, as smart as they are, and with issues we've been having, both state and federal, would say, okay, you know what, this is a major priority to lock it down. I don't want them to be like a prison, but you also got to know that every child that goes to school needs to be safe. So.
I would say that earlier there was rumor that there was gonna be some funding coming from the feds, but it has since fallen through. We've not heard anything on that.
It's unfortunate.
We're gonna wait for another disaster.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's unfortunate.
Anyway.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Kermit pointed out that CARES 3 can be used for something like that also, so.
I thought there was a tie-in with some of it, and that, of course, that opens up a whole lot bigger pot than this. And I don't know that that's just for rural then either. That way everybody can use it. So it's just it's a hot topic. Anybody out here can go to any of their districts and talk about.
Sure.
You know, when you ride by some of these very rural country schools, what a target, you know? And you don't want to look at it that way, but you've got to think that way. So, all right, sorry to take over there for a minute, but it's just so important. We got to find some more money to help them.
Anything else? Just put note, don't use a rock to prop open the door. So it's recommended that the State Board of Education authorize the school superintendent to award a grant of 66 rural school districts at a cost not to exceed $3,191,225 in federal funds to improve school safety practices and infrastructure. Any other further questions or comments? Hearing none, without objection, we will move this to the consent agenda. Okay, now item number 4, teaching and learning, a grant, computer science for Georgia, computer science capacity grant.
Yeah, this is a state budget line item. The purpose of this grant is to build instructional capacity around computer science education. The grant is not to exceed $287,200.
Any questions?
Just comment, Mr. Chairman.
Comments, yes.
I had an opportunity to just tell Dr. Dooley how happy I am this is continued, because Georgia's done this the right way with building the capacity, building the knowledge base within the department in the state of what computer science is, and continuing to build the capacity. That was one of the first things they were, how are we gonna do this? And still like building capacity around this. And I got an opportunity to be on Mr. Cox's Computer Science Advisory Committee. And it was once a handful of people, and superintendent, now you have a sophisticated conversation with educators, industry leaders, teachers, and they go pretty deep with how to connect CS to all of our pathways. And so that's connecting to the great foundation that Dr. Wall has set up for us. So these things are converging in a real way, and I just appreciate that longevity in doing it the right way, and not just throwing the words out there without doing the hard work. So.
And I ditto that because I think Kenneth, what's your name, drugged me along with that, because I know y'all don't laugh about me going, but it was quite a, Dr. Dooley, I remember that right over here in this room, and we did start out with about 5 or 6 people from the districts, and people started bringing information and looking at how we can align this properly, and so thank you. It's 16 counties still, 16 new, are these new counties that are added to this grant? Are they existing and they're new? So how many would you say we have served in the districts now? Just a general.
I don't know for this particular grant, but I know that we have over 800 certified teachers.
Yes.
In science, and when they started, we had 32.
Right.
We were begging for math teachers to come over to do computer science.
Still are.
I know, but to your point, Ken, of what this has really opened up. I mean, starting out asking math teachers to be computer science, and now you got 800.
And it's interesting, it is a new entree into teaching. Like there may be people in industry that have the skill set. We opened up the door to you can do this in K-12 classroom. So.
Thank you.
Okay, it's recommended that the State Board of Education authorize the state school superintendent to award a grant to 16 school districts at a cost of not to exceed $287,200 in state funds to build computer science teaching capacity. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, and without objection, we'll move this to the consent agenda. Okay, finance and business operations, $50,001 to $250,000 contracts.
Looks like we've got Chattahoochee Flint RESA, First District RESA, Pioneer RESA, and Dell Computer Corporation.
Okay, this has been in your on assembly, so you may have reviewed it in advance, but is there any questions on these? Okay, it is recommended that the State Board of Education authorize the state school superintendent to receive, enter into, and to amend contract transactions with vendors specified in the attachments entitled $50,001 to $250,000 contracts at a cost not to exceed the amounts provided in the said attachments. Any further questions or comments? Hearing none, we'll move this item to the consent agenda if there's no objection. Okay, and last cleanup here.
Can I just go back and ask one thing about the 25 under 50,000 in the RESAs? That's the first time we've done this, right? I'm looking at rural development, but is that?
About the rural grant? The rural
yes.
Grant, these are actually, there are already 3 that are in progress right now.
With the research, 3 other research.
With Southwest RESA has 2 cohorts, going right now. Chat Flint has 1 full cohort.
Okay.
And so this is an extension as we're moving this opportunity across. One of them will be a second cohort at Chat Flint because the goal is the sustainability moving forward and a systemic approach to that. And then we're also branching out to First District RESA and Pioneer RESA.
Pioneer. Thanks.
And
Thank you.
building capacity to move elsewhere.
Yep.
Just a few more months.
Just asking.
Okay. If there's no further questions or objections, we'll move this to the consent agenda. All right. All right, and then finally, finance and business operations grants under $250,000.
Yeah, these are just one for our ag education grants, one for our state high school program, and one for our big federal ESSER grants. These are just $0 adjustments for some changes in some of the allocations, maybe because of personnel certification updates and various things like that. So pretty standard.
Okay. It is recommended the State Board of Education authorize the state school superintendent to amend the grants specified in the attachments where the amendments are less than $250,000 at a cost not to exceed the amounts provided in said attachments. Descriptions are from Russ. Or do you have some?
No.
Okay. Okay. Any further questions or comments? If none on this, and we will move this item as well to the consent agenda, which means all the items from the budget committee are moved to consent agenda for tomorrow's committee of the whole, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. While we're still on budget, sort of because I've got 5 minutes to kill until we do state schools, we received and we were asked to apply for a grant through NASB, which is the National Association of State Boards of Education. And at the annual conference, which was last week, it was attended by Mr. Scott Johnson, Mike DeVito, Kenneth Mason, Matt Donaldson, Kobito, right, as they called you, who actually presented and did a wonderful job at the conference. And we actually went a couple of days early because we were awarded a $10,000 grant, which is my understanding, and I know Rusk, you signed the memorandum of understanding that we got from NASB, but it's for what's called a Healthy Schools Facility Network. And so why I'm bringing this up in budget is we did receive the grant, at least part of the grant monies. It's paid out in 2 $5,000 payments. I think the second one comes upon substantial completion or maybe completion of everything. But what we learned through that is, and I think our goal, what we plan on doing, and Scott is in charge of the committee. I actually listed the entire Board of Education as committee members. So it's a committee of the whole, if you will. And we are going to, in January, knock on wood, hopefully, have partners, environmental partners, if you will, that will come and talk to us about opportunities that I think a lot of school districts don't realize they have to apply for one-time only federal grant monies that are related to things like safe drinking water, asbestos abatement, filtration in the schools, which I know is something that a lot of our LEAs have been looking at with ESSER funds, CARES Act money, that sort of thing. So starting in January, we've got some partners with the CDC, school safety. They're going to come. That's who we're going to try to get first. We're going to have people from the EPA, but we met a lot of partners. And what we also want to do is I want you all to hear these partners that we have, and then take that to your boards of control and encourage the superintendents to contact those individuals and find out. I mean, the money's going to be there and it's going to go away if they don't take advantage of it. And there are opportunities that they have. So the $10,000 grant monies that we have will help pay for and alleviate what I'm foreseeing, travel expenses of being able to go to the boards of control, meeting with superintendents. I'm hoping that we can also partner up with our partners at Gale, GSSA, even GSBA, GASIS, and have these speakers come to go to like Bootstraps, the winter and the summer conferences and that sort of thing, to just talk to our different superintendents and our leaders and see what they can do and the grant monies that are out there for them. So we're really excited about that. And Scott and Michael and I set in on the entire, it was like a day and a half, 2 days of training about grant writing and this money that's out there that I think a lot of systems don't realize. So I'm excited about that, and it's good to be involved in NASB and have a seat at the table with them. And Kenneth, I know you've been involved, you and Scott both have been involved for a very long time with NASB, and we appreciate what you do. And I know that you went on a site visit to some schools there in Maricopa County, I
Yes.
believe, and that was interesting.
We are, I'm part of the Early Literacy Study Group, and we wanted to do a site visit in conjunction with the annual conference, and it was a good day of learning. They, some state board members don't get to go in elementary school classrooms like that, and with a focus on reading. And so it was a great day of conversation.
What I found interesting, and again tying it back to budget, is how different state boards of education are comprised. Some are actually elected positions, some are appointed, some are a hybrid of the two, and then how they manage their budget and what they're tasked with doing. And it's it's totally different everywhere you go, and it's just wild to hear about that. So I just wanted to say that while we're in budget, and I've successfully killed 5 minutes. Do we have any more business, Mr. Johnson? All right, fair enough, thank you. We'll move all the items to consent agenda, and we will roll right into State Schools Committee, and I will hand it to Ms. Lisa Kennemore, Chair, and I appreciate everyone's participation. I think we're gonna hear a wonderful presentation with all the good things that are going on, some changes, some improvements happening at the state schools.
Absolutely.
Hey, how are you? Good afternoon, everyone.
Afternoon.
Ms. Kennemore, did you want to say anything, or you want me?
No, as you were.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to take too much of your time today. I've got a presentation from some folks that I think you're really going to enjoy. I spoke with Ms. Kennemore, and I wanted to open up today by talking with you about our student enrollment, and we'll begin with the Atlanta Area School for the Deaf. Last year, based on our October counts, which we all do, we had 156 students at the school. This year we have 137. And as you all know, they had 20 graduates last year. It was a pretty large group, and those numbers have not come back up. We're looking at root causes of that, and like you all, we know there are things related to the pandemic, some other things, but I can update you about where we are with that school the next time we meet. At the Georgia Academy for the Blind, they had 92 students last year. And this year they have 96, so they've increased by 4 student placements. At the Georgia School for the Deaf, last year they had 4 students. This year they've got 71 as of October 1, and I know they have a few students placements that are pending. So on that one, it'll probably get back to where it was. I'm gonna jump around a little bit. I was gonna end by giving you all an update about our data and assessment. Dr. Tucci spoke to you all the last time we met about where we were. Next week, my team and I are going to be having a day-long meeting. Part of it's going to be about data assessment. Part of it's going to stem from some of the things that you're going to hear this afternoon from Jan Stevenson and Evelyn Dixon. And in that meeting, Dr. Tucci told you all we're going to try to re-envision how people think of assessments, change that narrative a little bit, that it's not a punitive thing or a negative thing, but then how do we look at data in a whole different way? So we're meeting with staff next week to do it. So I think at the next meeting, it'll be perfect timing to circle back with you all and let you know that we've made a lot of progress in that area. So any questions about those two things before I welcome my colleagues up here?
Could you repeat the number of students?
Sure.
For GSD, please?
Sure, yes, ma'am. GSD, last year as of October 1, they had 74 students. This year, on October 1, they had 71.
Okay.
So it dipped 3 students. Okay. Sure. So you all have given me the privilege of often getting to come up here and talk to you about student achievement, all of those kind of things, facilities. And I know that Jerry is going to send it, some of you already have it, our safety and security measures that I talked about in a prior meeting. You'll be able to see a list of those. And I can give you an update next time also about, you'll see some things that are in progress on there, but hopefully you'll be pleased with a lot of the safety measures we've implemented, what we are trying to implement collaboratively with school systems, local authorities, GMA, lots of stakeholders, so pretty pleased with that. So that said, the next few people who are going to come up here, they're going to talk to you about what we're doing in special ed at the state schools. And that may sound a little odd because all of our kids are special ed, but I wanted to take this opportunity to show you what this particularly newly formed unit is doing to support our students at the state schools, because like I said, they all are special education students, but what are we doing within the Division of State Schools to help those leaders at the schools, to help the teachers, and help the students? And so this is a pretty novel thing that we've been allowed to implement, this whole brand new unit. So I'm gonna ask Jan Stevenson to come up. She's our special ed director in the Division of State Schools. And a new person to our family in state schools is Evelyn Dixon. She is the program manager over. I got to steal Evelyn from Gwenna, so you can imagine how that conversation went. But please welcome Jan and Evelyn. Thank you all.
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces and some new faces that I haven't met, but as Kenny said, I'm Jan Stevenson, and I have been in the agency for almost 18 years. First 10 years were in the special education division, and the last 7 have been in the state schools division. So I've worn a lot of different hats, and this opportunity came up. It was Kenny's brainchild to create units, which has been extremely helpful because, as you all know, our schools are small in comparison to a local school district, but at the same time, they also are about 100 miles apart from each other. And we're unique, as Kenny said, that all of our students are students with disabilities, and they have IEPs. So we created this unit, it was around this time last year, and Evelyn joined us in April, so we're very happy to have her. Okay, so this is our mission, and as we talk about it in the agency a lot, we know that compliance is important, but we also know we have to have compassion. So our mission is to make sure that we are ensuring that all of our students at the state schools not only have an appropriate public education, which is what the law says we have to give them, but also a great education to be the best that they can be. And we want to couple that with our core values that the agency has and our culture. So that's what our mission is all about. And just keeping us where we should be as far as all of our regulations. So, in creating the unit, was so much that we could cover with special education because it's such a vast area. But what we decided to do was to narrow our focus into 4 areas that were of the greatest demand. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Evelyn, so Evelyn can talk through some of our focus and share that with you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Jan. As Jan mentioned, we did, because special ed can be so broad, we tried to hone in on 3 focus areas. And the 3 focus areas are instructional practices, accountability, and technical assistance. I'm going to talk a little bit about the instructional practices. We didn't take this task lightly. We understand that when we were looking at the focus areas, we looked at it based on, or we made the determination on the focus areas based on some internal audits that we conducted. We collaborated with other units within state schools. Definitely communication with the school leaders across state schools. And because we know we are directly connected with the Division for Special Education Services and Supports, we do attend a lot of the webinars and whatever trainings they may have because we want to stay abreast with what the federal regulations are saying as it relates to special ed, as well as the state special education rules. So let's start with instructional practices. 2 sub-focus areas under instructional practice. We wanted to focus on specially designed instruction as well as progress monitoring, and I'll talk about that in a second. With the specially designed instruction, as Jan and Kenny mentioned, all of our students are students with disabilities. So all of our students will get specially designed instruction. However, the difference is my specially designed instruction may be different from Jan's specially designed instruction because it's all individualized and it's based on the child's IEP. So with that said, we know that the teachers have to adapt the content, the methodology, and the delivery of instruction to meet whatever those unique needs are for those particular students to ensure that they have access to the general ed curriculum. So specially designed instruction, okay, don't know what happened. Specially designed instruction is basically what the teacher does, not what the student does. Is what the teacher does through instructional practices. So if I have an accommodation of using a graphic organizer, that's just that accommodation that I'm getting so to help me have access to the general ed curriculum so that I can progress. But the teacher would provide some type of direct instruction on how to use that graphic organizer. And that's just an example. There are several ways that a teacher can do that. So what we wanted to do was make sure that we were giving the teachers additional training, whatever they need to be able to provide this specially designed instruction. With that said, it's great if we can implement all of these things, but we have to have a way to monitor this. So we talked about progress monitoring and how it should be ongoing. And basically it's just to see, just a fidelity check to make sure that the instructional practices that we are implementing, that we are implementing them with fidelity, that it's appropriate for the students, and that we're helping the students to progress toward the general ed curriculum. So with that said, I'll turn it back over to Jan, and she's going to talk about accountability.
Okay, so with accountability, like we said, there are some things that we just can't avoid because of the federal law. And as you know, the special education students are the only set of students that actually have a law written to protect them and give them rights. So we do have to put compliant practices in place to make sure that we are staying within the guidelines of the law. And so the approach we've tried to do so far is not a hammer down approach and just checking, are you following this, are you following that? But a lot of it has come out of discovery, just being honest with you. Sometimes those discoveries have made us fall back and go, whoa, wait a minute. And then some of them have been opportunities for us then to share more information. So that's kind of the approach we've tried to do. But some of the practices that were going on in our schools did cause us to get our hands slapped a little bit. One of them was transition and post-secondary outcomes. So we did get cited by the Special Education Division for that, and we immediately corrected it. We accepted technical assistance, and we crawled out of that non-compliance within one school year, which is what they asked that you do. So we're currently in compliance with transition and secondary outcomes, so we were very happy for that.
What does that mean, transitions?
Okay.
And, yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry. Okay, so transition are our children when they leave, what happens to them when they leave us? So when they leave school, when they matriculate, whether they graduate or unfortunately, if we have one or two that drop out, but for when they're finished with their education, what happens?
So the expectation of
Tracking, the expectation, job placement, if they're going to go to access secondary education, whether that's a 2-year institution, 4-year institution, technical college, we have to track all that data. What's important for you to know is that we just are not allowed to give the students their diploma and their cap and gown and say, well, good luck to you. We're supposed to train our students and help them to transition to these areas because they are students with disabilities. Yes, ma'am.
How long is the tracking? How many years or period of time?
We have to report annually, and it's typically you report on the previous year. So it's not like, so if a child had graduated in June, when we report during the October count, then we would report where is that child, but we wouldn't have to report on that child for the next October. So it's typically 1 year in the rear. And we have to provide goals for those students. You work in conjunction with the students when they turn 16. And you're supposed to help develop a plan. It's not necessarily a cookie cutter model, but it's helping them for what they say they want to do. So if a student says, well, I really want to work in my dad's business and be a mechanic, just like my dad, then you look at the things that are required to be a mechanic and try to support that student while they're still with us so that they have some support. So sometimes that might be an actual course, connecting them with some CTAE courses, or that might be job experience, workplace experience. Well, let's, have you do some job shadowing. Let's think about the educational aspects. Well, there's certain types of math that you may need to use to be a mechanic. You may have to learn certain vocabulary because of the tools and parts of the engine and car. So those things would be in that child's IEP. So we are much better. As I said, we're currently in compliance, so that's a good thing. But there's a difference between compliance versus performance and growth. And so the growth area is our area of opportunity that we're working on. So as we tell the schools, you have the letter of the law, which would be the compliance part, but we also want to work on the spirit of the law, which will give our kids more opportunities. Does that kind of give you a clear explanation? All right, and so some of the other areas that we found that we just needed to support were IEP development and implementation. Of course, you're probably thinking, well, all the teachers ought to know that, they're special ed teachers. Well, we have an array of teachers that have come from different backgrounds. We also have quite a few new teachers this year. And so in their preparation, they may have had one course in IEPs, but they hadn't actually had to write an IEP. So we are working on that. And so that's what that is about. The IEP is just the acronym for Individualized Educational Program. And that is what every child that has a disability is required to have. So that's an area that we're working on.
Who is doing your IEP training, development training?
We're doing it together.
It's a combination. What we try to do is, as I mentioned earlier, we work close with the Division for Special Education.
Here at the DOE?
Yes.
Okay.
And they have a lot of trainings, whether it's for SDI, whether it's for IEP development, and we kind of lean on them to kind of be in-house, so to speak, before we go outside. In addition to that, because of Jan and I's background with special education, we provide targeted support to our schools as well. Like for instance, I'm going to AASD on a weekly basis to provide support with IEP development, whether it be learning how to write a present level of academic achievement and functional performance. So we're getting down, or we're drilling down to step one, because a lot of our teachers are new.
But inside your school with your IEP, the collaboration is there with the teachers, the subject area matter for that student, with the parent, and you meet. How often do you meet with your IEP?
So it depends. So what we are doing is some internal assessments. So just to be quite frank with you, AASD needs most of our support at this time. They're the ones that, as you all know, it's no secret, had a lot of turnover, and they've gotten a lot of new staff. So, as Evelyn said, she's literally going out there every week now. She's been doing that for almost 2 months. And she's providing one-on-one support of pulling teachers during their planning periods and working with them, working with small groups on these types of things. I have done more support with some of our more difficult IEP meetings when the leaders have called us or they've gotten into some situations that we had to attend, then those are the ones I've been going to. Like we had one yesterday, it was a 2-hour meeting at one of the schools.
But the professional learning that is opened up between your instructional practices and this accountability,
Yeah.
Is the funding, where is the funding there? Is it all state?
It's a mixture of
It's
state
mixed.
and then also some of our federal funds,
Okay.
leveraging
We get
some of the
ideas.
ESSER funds we've had. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a combination.
Yeah.
And then a lot of it is maybe even no cost, like Evelyn was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
But we get federal funds, the IDA funds, which are tied to all that we're showing you. And so as far as the accountability, because we accept the federal funds, we do have to follow the federal law. But we also have state funds as well. We aren't internally using any additional funds, but it's been something that Kenny and I identified for a while that we needed to focus on. But to be honest with you, we didn't have another body. And you all know I was helping with a lot of different things. So when Kenny approved another position with Superintendent Wood's support and Matt's support, we were able to get Evelyn. So now it's 2 of us that can focus and go out to the schools more.
And I
Does
just,
that answer what you're
yes,
asking for?
and the collaboration that comes with the leadership here at DOE,
Yeah.
should be really, y'all should be really tagging on to that, because even with Keith, you've got technology down here. What Keith is doing with technology, what's going on in accountability right now, what's going on with instructional practices across the board, I would be leaning very heavy on that support also, and I'm sure you are. But those are the people and the numbers that are gonna really help you progress. As you said, you have some urgent needs.
Yes.
And I think that might be a real reach out.
And I appreciate you saying that, and we are on some of that.
Figured you
In
were.
fact, down here, you'll see we have discipline. We have collaborated with the special ed division because that has been an area of focus that we needed to do a laser focus on. And the special ed division is providing technical support to us as well as professional learning on that. We are also collaborating with some of the local school districts because we've had to say to them, we are not an LEA. We are 3 schools that provide programming on your behalf. So we need your help. So in some cases, especially for individual students, where we've had some struggles, we've had to have IEP meetings and other meetings with the LEA to ask for their support. And in those cases, they have sent personnel out to do assessments. They have provided some training. So we're pulling different angles, but we are making it clear that we have to collaborate for the success of our students. So thank you for that, and we will continue that. Keith, you might, Keith, oh. He left before I could tell him we might be calling him about some other thing. Okay, but we'll reach out to him. But we did about a year ago about credit recovery and how that might look through virtual learning. So we will keep that in mind. I know Ken will keep that on his radar. But these are where we are with some of our things. Some things we haven't touched, but this is the focus on the compliant practices. And the other part that we want to do is we want to empower our 3 schools to do this. Not just wait for I got you, which we try not to do, but we want them to understand the regulations and have accountability so that we are more of a support. And so it's kind of a seesaw that we are doing right now, but they are getting better. We do have special ed coordinators at schools. Each school has a special ed coordinator. We meet with them monthly as a team, and in some cases, we've had to meet with some of them a little bit more often for school situations, but it is getting much better. Any other questions on this? Okay, if you think of anything, certainly reach out, say it. Let me see where we are. Is this you, Evelyn?
Yes. Okay, so we're about to close out. This is the last focus area, and it's accountability. Jan and I have talked about this a lot when we think about just working with the schools and the students. And hey, Jan, this is still yours.
Oh, that's all right.
I'm sorry. This is still yours.
That was just, I'm sorry, y'all, that was just the rest of compliance.
Yes.
And just letting you know the areas that we're having to focus. These are more of the regulatory pieces. These are all the laws. These are just examples of the laws that we have to follow. And then also due process procedures. We're really putting a lot of emphasis. We've already mentioned professional learning, which we did at the beginning of the school year. But also, as we said, we're doing targeted professional learning for schools, but also the coaching and the feedback piece. That's a lot of what we're working on, not only with teachers, but also honestly with some of the leadership and helping them so that they can then help the teachers.
Thank you, Jan. Sorry about that. So the last piece is the what we call our targeted support. And our targeted support, there you go. Our targeted support, one of the biggest areas that Jan had mentioned earlier is the discipline piece. And I always like to say, or we always like to say, with every ounce of compliance that we give out, we need to be providing a pound of support. It's not just punitive when we go in and we look at things, we're collecting this information so that we'll know how to support the students. The discipline procedures, as I mentioned earlier, and I know Ms. Rice asked how we were collaborating with the Division of Special Ed. That's one of the focus areas for them as well, discipline. And that's coming down from the Office of Special Education programs. And we realize that we need to be looking at restorative practices. We shouldn't be going from 0 to 10 or looking at out-of-school suspension. What are some things that we're putting in place to help the students, first of all, because we don't know the reason why or behind some of the behaviors that are going on. And instead of just automatically saying we're going to out-of-school suspension, what type of practices or things are we putting in place to help the students? Do we have character education? It may be something going on with the kid. Has the kid eaten today? You know, it's a lot of things that we can do before we go from 0 to 100. So we wanted to make sure that we were providing those types of supports to our schools. As Jan mentioned, we did realize that discipline was one of the areas we needed to hone in on a little bit more. So we've had the Division of Special Education to come out and help the teachers with developing functional behavior I would say conducting a functional behavior assessment and developing a behavior intervention plan for the students so that we can catch them on the front end instead of on the back end. So if we know with a student with a disability, if we go beyond those 10 days of OSS, that's a change of placement for them. We don't want to get there. We want to make sure that maybe even at day 5, if we have a student that is exhibiting some type of behaviors, we're already implementing some strategies. We're looking at an FBA for this student. We're looking at a behavior intervention plan because it may be something we're not doing or we're not providing for the student. So we definitely are honing in on the discipline piece. Okay?
And if I could just add to that, I did want to share that, and I know you all have read this, you've probably seen it on TV, it's actually becoming a national issue. But in the past, I would say we had more conduct problems. We're really seeing more mental illness now. So I'm here to tell you mental illness is real. And it is affecting our students. And so that is driving us to get the support we need for the teachers and staff. Because our schools, those teachers and staff are experts in their discipline, which is hearing, deafness, or blindness and vision. So they don't have a lot of expertise in the behavior piece. So that's why we are reaching out to the special ed division.
This is a question, because again, Richard, with the buckets that we have here, and with Whole Child and in Caitlin's shop, PBIS, is Justin is he here or online? Because PBIS, that Positive Behavior Intervention, I would love to hear what they are doing to work with special needs kids. I know they can. And that social and emotional factor, because we voted on grants that have gone to PBIS in these areas. And so, is Justin online? Does anybody know, or is Caitlin?
And I can say, that I know all 3 schools implement PBIS to a degree.
But you have to do it with
we used to have
fidelity.
an assigned person that, from the PBIS unit, and I would have to follow up on that to see if we still have that person.
And the challenge is this has gotten way beyond PBIS.
Yeah. Well, I'm afraid, but.
Yeah, PBIS is a tool, but that's that's bringing a knife to a gunfight.
But
And where I'm not poo-pooing.
I'm sorry.
What you're saying, because PBIS, I mean, I remember I had my doubts when when you were chair, PI, I was like, oh, great. And it's been incredible. It's been incredible work. I'm very, very happy you pushed and other members and pushed that. It's definitely the right thing to do.
I'm thinking that if they have that level, that I know that they are so indoctrinated into the depth of what can surface from that. It might not be PBIS, but it might be something in there.
No, I mean, where I'm
Going with the question.
Yes.
Right.
Like I say, PBIS is a wonderful tool to deal with kids with some behavioral issues. We're talking about mental health issues and severe mental crisis. It may not be a kid that's got mental health issues, but it's in a crisis. And doing it, that's where we're at. And I should know the answer to this. At the 3 schools, there's clinics. Is there a CNA there, or what's the people that are in charge of the clinics?
There are nurses at each school, but it's not behavior. It's your typical school nurse.
I understand, but so there are nurses. Are they RNs? Are they CNAs? Or
They're RNs.
They're RNs. Awesome.
All of them are in.
And at GAB, they contract, but they contract with a company that sends out
Well, and part of where I'm going with this is that there's things coming down the pipe, and there's other dollars that are available. There's some companies out there that are doing a really good job in doing telehealth mental health via telehealth and other telehealth clinics. And I know we've got the school-based health center grants. I know that's in process and working on the MOUs and different things with that. But there's also, even under, Matt, help me if I'm wrong, but even under the COVID dollars, what's the state system where they go in and pull down the dollar? I always forget the name of it. I'm sorry?
Department of Behavior.
Yeah, there's dollars that can be pulled down specifically for telehealth and telemedicine. And that's one of the boxes that could be checked. I've been talking to some are aware, some, I know you send out information, but they get diluted just like me with phone and stuff. But there's other things I think we could be doing for our students and have the capabilities and federal dollars to even do right now that we're just maybe not aware of.
Well, we can follow up and get that name from you.
I was following up a little bit, Mike, on that, because that was mentioned to us back when Ashley mentioned those telehealth clinics on the.
Yeah,
I mean,
I know we asked for some additional information on that, and I don't think, did you? No, I didn't either.
And there's a local agency that I know that Atlanta Area School for the Deaf accesses because they specialize in working with deaf individuals. I might be mispronouncing, I think it's Avita. Avita is the name of it. But yeah, without breaching confidentiality, we've had 1 or 2 students that have had to be hospitalized this year. So
and talking in broad numbers isn't avoiding any HIPAA, but I'm surprised it's not more. Potentially, honestly, I'm not trying to be sarcastic at all by saying that, because it is a real issue.
Well, there's a huge shortage of mental health professionals across the board, regardless of what the population is.
Yeah.
They really haven't expanded the placements in medical school in that area. It's hard to find. I mean, in Gainesville, I think we have like 3 in Hall County and only 1 with the hospital group. So it's, you know, it's a big problem everywhere.
Well, we welcome any suggestions and.
That's where you got my brain, but we've got additional challenges, i.e. we've got schools for the deaf and blind. So those, you know, a monitor is not a great way to serve as that potentially. I mean, I don't want to say no to that, but there's some different things. We just need to think out of the box maybe a little bit with that to help serve these students and do that. I'm glad you're bringing that up in this today, because that's, when I started this committee and as chair, that's what I wanted, was to help bring things and us think about stuff and be your board, be your sounding board, but be a partner in it and try to think about how to solve problems and bring solutions together. So got my mind going.
Rounding out that team, each school that we're blessed to have this, they have a school psychologist, a school social worker, or a few counselor positions. I hear from colleagues around the state all the time, oftentimes those folks are split between multiple schools.
Yeah.
We have the privilege, if you will, that they're based at each school. We had an incident, I believe, last year where there was an event that happened with a passing of a staff member at ASD, and we were able to pull those professionals from the and spend the day with students and staff to help them work through that. So I agree with you. I think there's lots of opportunities still for collaboration.
So thank you, we appreciate the feedback. As part of our technical assistance, besides the compliance, accountability, and then of course, the performance piece, we have to remind our schools of looking at different ways to support our students in accessing the general curriculum. Because even though our students are students with disabilities, they still are supposed to be educated based on the general curriculum. So we are providing technical assistance with accommodations and modifications for the students. And we go out and we might look at one specific student, and we are having to work with the staff that they understand it's individualized. So you literally could have 4 kids in your class, and each one of those kids has to have different accommodations. So we have to do to help the student. Progress reporting, not just on academics, but behavior, but what are we sending home to the families? Are we giving parents a clear picture of how their children are performing? And how we doing that data collection and keeping up with that. And then also, as we said, the professional learning piece.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Do you work with the RESAs as well, with any of the components that you're dealing with?
Yes, we do. We have not had to, since school has started, but we have reached out to them to provide training when we do our professional learning at the beginning of the school year. And we have considered them for different aspects, like even with some of the core subjects of techniques and things. So yes, we do work with the RESA and GLRS.
Okay. Could you send us the PowerPoint presentation that you just gave, so we can have it?
It's already been sent, hasn't it?
Okay, you're welcome, thank you. Who did I send it to?
Jerry.
Okay, to Jerry, okay, I will do that. Thank you.
And I'd like to close out.
No, go ahead, close out, yeah.
I just want to say, hopefully you see where we've been taking this. You all have heard from every unit that we've been, again, privileged to create over the last few years. And that's particularly because of the leadership of Superintendent Woods of not wanting people to work in silos, but to collaborate. And many of you have said this even today during these presentations. We'll soon be starting after next week some pretty intense work to take all of these units and the things that I've been presenting to you and my staff have for months and creating a strategic plan And that way we can, when I come to you, we can keep revisiting that strategic plan. So you'll see progress in each of these areas, and you'll see the cross-functionality, which I hear a number of you are getting at. How does this tie into this? But overall, I want you all to understand when we walk away from that work, and it's continuous, is how are we in my office supporting each of those schools, which means supporting children and supporting local school systems around the state, because that's how we're here on the continuum of services. That's our purpose. Please.
Could you also share about the Teachers of the Year?
Yes, thank you, thank you. Sure. Our Teacher of the Year is Jamie Anderson at the Georgia School for the Deaf. She's an elementary teacher of 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. She teaches English, mathematics, and social studies. And so she'll be coming. I work with Ms. Kennemore. Like you all got to see our last Teacher of the Year, and I'm glad we have a gentleman here representing the state. I thought it was a great thing that person came and spoke to you and gave his teaching philosophy and some of the things that he did. So we'll work together on scheduling that, her to come, Jamie to come and present. So she'll be getting $1,000 from the state schools to use to purchase for supplies and materials in her class. She's just a remarkable teacher. So thanks for mentioning that. Thank you. Sure. Thank you. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
State schools, unless we have any other questions.
Any more questions regarding state schools? Thank you very much. Great presentation. You're welcome back anytime, and we appreciate the hard work you all are doing, continuing to improve our state schools, and thank you for everything.
Thank you.
And I don't know if you heard, we're going to try to have a meeting in Macon, hopefully in July, if we can get the bylaws amended. That's our goal, and so start prepping. All right, thanks. All right, we've got about 5 minutes before our first work session. So if y'all want to take a quick 5-minute break, we're going to start promptly at 1:45. We'll be in recess until then. Coffee, whatever you need. Stay awake.
Whatever.
Well.
What's wrong? I said calisthenics. Let's go. Let's go do some stairs. 20 to 20.